Hello, this is Lady B, and once again I am bringing you something from the Manual of Ladies Hairdressing for Students, originally printed in 1899. Now, before I move on to some new hairstyles, I feel like I have to finish up chapter 3 and address what they call the twist and plaits, or as we call them now, braids. And they mention specifically the twist, and then again they mention plaits or braids in a 3, 4, and 5 braid. So that is what I am covering today. Now, the twist is a type of 2-part braid. You take your hair and you split it into 2, right? So I have 2 here, and you twist it. Now the key to this is you have to twist both sections the same direction. Doesn't matter which direction it is, but the same direction, like that. Now, normally at this point, I will actually put this end in my mouth. Obviously, I can't do that right now. So, but once you have 2 of them that are going the same direction, then you literally just let them wrap around each other. And if you get it the right way, see, that was the wrong way. If you get it the wrong way, they'll blend together like this and it will look like one plate. If you do it the right way, which obviously I had not, you're going to wrap them the opposite direction that you twist, which is where I went wrong. And if you make sure to do it the opposite direction, they will twist around each other. Just tie the end off. This is the only thing I don't mind using these rubber bands for, is tying ends off. I hate using it up here because it can cause breakage, especially the higher up on the head. So you'll notice I've tied it off, and the twist itself is what holds it in place, because you have a twist going one way on the strands and then the other way with them around each other. They hold themselves together, and that will stay in. And you can use this, of course, to fancy up any hairstyles that you do. And that's the most basic one. They call it the twist. Most of the time of these days I hear it called a 2-strand braid, but that's how it's described in the book. Now, the basic 3-strand plait, I think, is something that most of us know. So for a 3-strand braid, you're going to break your hair into 3 groups. Try and get these somewhat even. And it's an over-under. You take your outside from one side, you go over the middle, and then that will go under the next one, which comes from the outside again and over. And you simply repeat that. It's over and over. Or you can do it the other way. Doesn't matter with the 3-strand braid which way you do it. Come from the outside and you can come under. And then under. And it doesn't matter which way you do it as long as you're consistent. If it's over, then you stay over. If you start under, you stay under. And that is your basic 3-strand braid, which, like I said, I think most of us know. Where it gets more complicated is when you start doing a 4-strand and a 5-strand. Now, there is a basic technique to this that you actually can apply no matter how many strips you do. It mentions specifically a 3, 4, and 5-strand braid, but the fact is, you can do a 6-strand, 7-strand, 8-strand. The more strands you use, the flatter and wider your braid will be. And the technique is the same For your even braiding, and it is also the same for your odd braiding, but it is different from even to odd, which I'm going to show you what I mean. Whether you are doing a 3-strand braid or a 5-strand braid, the technique is the same. Making 5 strands, I'm going to take 4 fingers, push that through my hair to separate out 5 strands. So I now have 5 strands here. And how you hold this will help you keep them apart. I've got 2 on this side, 2 on that side, and 1 in the middle I can swap. Okay. Now, just like with the 3-strand, whether you go over or under, it's going to be the same to either side. So you bring over to the next space, and then here's that middle one I'm swapping between. I'm going to go under the middle, bringing it to the center. Okay. So I've got my 2 strands here, and the middle one I swap. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to go over the second one, and then under the middle. So it is just like a 3-strand braid, except I have one additional part that I go over or under, depending on which way I started. Anyway, so there you can see the beginnings of a 5-strand braid. It's exactly the same as a 3-strand, except you've got an additional one to go over and under. Now, the 4-strand is different. Any of the even braids you do will be different. And it's different if you're going to do a lot of strands like this, anything over a 4-strand. I recommend having some clips you can use to put your hair in to keep them all separate so you don't have that confusion. So for a 4-strand, it is just a little different. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so the concept is exactly the same. You're going to start either over or under on one side. So I'm going to bring this over. And then just like with the 5-strand, I'm going to bring it under the next one. Okay? But I don't keep going. I stop here. Technically, I stop here, but I kind of don't. Because the thing that makes the even ones different is that whatever you start with, whether it's over or under, you do the opposite on the next side. So since I started by going over on this side, I am going to come under on this side, which then brings that first one all the way to the other side. And now this one, again, I started under, so now I go over and then under on the other side, again, starting the new braid, the new section, which goes over and under and over. Then this one starts under, then over, then under, and now over, then under, and then over. And it just keeps going back and forth. Under, lost my grip, over, and under. And over, then under, then over, and so forth. And you can see a 4-strand braid there. So there are a lot of options. There are also a lot of really great tutorials you can find online for how to make these braids. How to use them is quite simple in these hairstyles. I'm going to show you my favorite way to use one of these braids in a hairstyle. Give me 1 second while I put my hair up. So, the most common hairstyle I throw my hair up in is still the coil, simply because it is so easy to do. But sometimes I want to make it a little more fancy. And you can do this with just about any hairstyle, any of these hairstyles. You can take any of the twists and the knots, and I will be teaching you some new knots soon. But you can take any of these twists and knots, and you can add a braid here or there instead of simply the hair and make it fancier. So for the coil, if you want to see how to do it, I do have a previous video you can watch on exactly how that's made, but I'm going to start the basics of it. My hair is long enough that when I put my hair up in a coil, I get 2 loops. So I'm going to do my first loop as normal. All right. So there's my first loop. Okay. This is my second loop. Now, I'm going to take my second loop and I'm going to braid it. And I'm just going to do a basic 3-strand braid. It doesn't have to be more than that. If I wanted to make it fancier, I could do a 4 or a 5-strand. Again, the more strands you use, the more intricate it will look and the more flat it will be. It will be broader, wider, and flatter. Because your thickness of your braid is basically the diameter of each of the individual sections. So as you section your hair into more and more sections, that diameter gets smaller and smaller. So the 3-strand gives me the thickest of the plaits or braids, which is probably why I like to do it here. Swipe a little bit from you. Okay, so what I just did, there's a little trick you can do when you're braiding. If one of your strands, as you're getting further down, starts getting really thin, you can take a little bit from the middle strand before you flip it over from the outside to the inside. And it has to be the middle strand or it won't blend in. If you take it from anywhere else and add it in, it will stand out. It will show as a mistake in the pattern. But as long as you take an outside strand and as you're pulling it to the middle, you take a little bit of this middle strand, it will not show. So I can thicken that strand just a little bit by taking a little bit from that middle piece. So there's just a little trick for when you're braiding longer hair, and what's evenly thick up here may not be evenly thick down here. And so that's how you can take care of it. All right, I have it all the way down. I'm going to pull it back where it belongs. And you'll notice I'm not tying it off, but I am going to redo this bit of twist here. There we go. Pull that back into a twist, put my pin back in. Okay, so now I have this coming behind, and I'm very carefully pull this across so that the braid stays flat. And then tuck the back. And I want to keep this braid flat all the way around. So the secret, when you've done something like this, to keeping that braid flat is that as I put my next layer of pins in, I make sure to only grab from one of these bottom loops on the braid. Because if I grab from a top loop and pull down, it would twist the braid. So instead, I make sure that I'm grabbing a bottom piece and tucking that in. And you can see better here from the front because I've been doing it in the back so you haven't been able to see. But you'll notice I'm going to just grab from a bottom loop, pull, twist, and push that in. And that keeps that braid flat. And there it is. A little pinch and pull. Voila. Now you can see how just adding a braid has just dressed this up, made it more elegant, a little more fancy. Maybe you'd wear this to a special occasion, or you would, I don't know, maybe you just feel like dressing up a little nicer that day. Or maybe you'll take one of the hairstyles that I have either already shown you or will be showing you, and maybe you want to dress it up a little bit, make it a little fancier. I'm sure that is why that these techniques were found in this third chapter before we start getting into the more complicated hairstyles and knots and twists and things. So just remember, you can always mix it up. Just suit yourself. Don't be afraid. Try things that are new and make whatever it is you do exclusively you. Mallemont. I would say the name of the author, but I have no idea how to pronounce this, and I'm positive it's French. So, at least when I was younger, everybody knew how, and I'm just babbling now. This may look familiar to those of us who are Star Wars fans. In the original trilogy, they would put Princess Leia in braids often, and I do believe that she wore this style at one point. I could be wrong. Feel free to correct me if I am. I swear I remember her wearing this.